The street, you do remember last week on Friday they held their first Manos, and one thing led to another, and 6 lives were lost. So we shouldn't be heading down that route. But tomorrow they say that they will still be on the street to oppose, among other things, the Kenya Kwanza regime on taxes and more specifically on the Finance Act. And still on the Azimio, they've talked about getting about 10 to 15 million signatures. Well, we'll be looking at that as well. And something else that happened in the political sphere is that the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal declared the ouster of Jeremiah Kioni as the Secretary General of Jubilee and leaving Kanini Kega faction to lead the former ruling party. Remember, Jubilee is squarely in Azimio One Kenya coalition. What does this mean? And what are some of the reprieves that the ousted group can also go to court, or how can they be addressed? And today, remember, it's the Africa Anti-Corruption Day. So today we have a packed show. And allow me to introduce my first guest. Just on my immediate left, we have Joshua Mbidi Mwalio. Honorable Joshua Mbidi Mwalio is the MP for Masinga, who was elected on an independent ticket. But he has decided to align himself with the Kenya Kwanza government and President William Ruto. Mheshimiwa, karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
And it's also good to point out that you are also a member of the House Business
and
the NGCDF.
I'm a member of the House Business Committee. And NGCDF and the Trade and Industry Committee.
Yes, and Trade and Industry as well.
Yes, yes.
And maybe something that I noted in this Finance Act is that the NGCDF is more or less going to get a bigger boost. And I've seen some of the MPs have decided to channel a huge chunk of that money to education. Maybe you can start with that.
Yes, to give you the background is that NGCDF gets the share of 2.5% of the national revenue after the accounts have been given their share. Then the 2.5% is taken from the national government share. So whatever amount increases in the national share, then we also get the 2% percent also goes up. So this time it has gone up, and we are happy that it is increasing our development, and also our bursaries are going up. Just to let you know, bursary is pegged on 25% up to 35, up to 30th June 2022-2023. But now, as from 1st of July, we have been able to enhance it to 40%, from 25% to 40%, because we are looking at a situation whereby places like Northeastern, where there is a lot of drought, and also Lower Eastern, some parts of Lower Eastern, that children don't go to school because they have not eaten even at home. So we need to feed them in the school so that they can be able to know, even if they lack food at home, there will be lunch in the school. So that is why we have been able to take it to 40% of the allocation of each constituency to be able to cater for food. For those who have no problem with the farming, then they can be able to allocate them fully to their bursaries, so that they can be able to educate as many children and sponsor as many poor children as possible to school. Yes.
Yes, and it's a good thing that education is eating up a lot, and especially now that we have a drought. And we also be joined a little bit later, just in a few minutes, by Alex Mola, who is a constitutional lawyer and also a leadership and governance expert. We know that the Finance Act is squarely in the hands of a 3-judge bench, as directed by High Court Judge Mugure Ndande yesterday. And that, according to Kenya Kwanza government, have argued that this could derail the operations of government. Allow me now to bring in the lawyer, Alex Mola. Karibu sana wakili.
Asante sana.
And thank you so much for making time.
Thank you too.
Yes, yesterday a lot of Kenyans thought maybe the decision by the High Court would be either to start using the Finance Act of 2023 or to go back to the appointing authority, which is the president, then to Parliament. But that did not happen. We were surprised to find that the issue raised just that the High Court declared that was quite hefty and raises a number of issues that needs to be looked keenly according to the Constitution. What do you make of that? The three-judge bench. And do we have, that will kind of take a little bit longer?
Yeah, I think, first of all, the thing that Kenyans have to appreciate is that as a country, we have come from afar. And yesterday's ruling, which is basically, of course, is an interim order, is a ruling that, as much as it's very painful to the government, and it will be very, very painful for the running of the affairs of the government, is an assertion of where we are as a country, and that we are a country run by the rule of law. Because we are either a country of laws or none. And so what the judge said yesterday, and she had already given interim orders before, which were just confirmed, that some of the things Okiya Omtata and others are arguing is that this bill was supposed to be presented to the Senate. And that is a requirement not just of the statute but of the Constitution. The Constitution had already provided for it. And so if this was not done, and indeed they presented the various provisions, including housing levy, that touched on the mandate of the Senate. And so if this was not done, then it means that the Constitution was violated. And so then it means that this has to be suspended. We could see the argument of the CS for Treasury and the AG that the government is going to shut, which is partly true. Because now the government, this regime cannot be able to collect 211 billion shillings that it targeted through the amendments that this Finance Act was going to have. But that being the case, even though we need that money for the development, because the budget stipulated the kind of things the president and his government want to do, those things have to be done within the law. And so yesterday's ruling, to me, it is an affirmation of where we've come from, the independence of the judiciary, because perhaps some people thought that the judiciary will be cowed and perhaps give a ruling that is more convenient. Yesterday was a ruling between the conveniency and the rule of law. And so the judge felt that this is an important matter that needs a panelment of a three-judge bench to look at it. It will still be a decision of the High Court. What we are expecting to see is that, and that was expressed by Somane when he was making his submissions at the end of the ruling, that they are going to make an appeal to the Court of Appeal to see if this can be reversed. Yeah.
And Mheshimiwa, being aligned to the Kenya Kwanza regime, and you saw what happened, you are the guys who passed the Finance Act. Some people have argued that when it comes to certain issues like the Finance Act, the three arms of government, that is the legislature, judiciary, and the executive, are and should be independent. But they're talking about this could be seen as an interference of the judiciary for something like the Finance Act. I would like to weigh your words on that.
Thank you very much. You see, although they are independent, the three arms of government are independent, but they work together. And therefore, one checks the others. Like the judiciary has to check whether the rule of law is being obeyed. And if it is not, then they have a say. And that is what they have said yesterday. So let's say, as the lawyer has said, that there will be a lot of to and fro, and also words will, people will exchange a lot of words. But at the end of the day, that we are going to harmonize ourselves, because we need the money. We need the money, but according to the Constitution, then we need this to be done in the right way. So That is what the judiciary is trying to say, that let's do things right, so that once we have done them right, there is no problem. Because if you check the last year, which ended on 30th June, there was no development because we do not have money. So this finance bill was to collect money for the country to go forward, and this regime of governance can be able to do whatever they promise the Kenyans they will do, and that cannot be done without money. So that is what they are trying to achieve. But let's see what will happen, because the three bench will be appointed. They will bring in their wisdom of three. This was the wisdom of one. So let's see what the wisdom of three will bring on board.
And I would also like to pick your mind on this. Some of the legislators allied to the Kenya Kwanza regime have talked about the judiciary kind of overstepping their mandates, and some even have thrown salvos and some stones to the judiciary, so to speak, saying that the judiciary erred in what was the determination. I would like to weigh in on your personal.
You see, the interpretation of law is different. So everybody sees it different. The independence of each arm of government can be interpreted differently. But you see, there is a supreme law which has to be able to be overseen by everybody. Everybody must be overruled by by the Constitution. So it doesn't matter. You see, talking is talking, and following the law is following the law. So we as politicians, we can speak anything so that our way is followed. So let's see, as I have said before, let's wait and see, because the president has obeyed the Constitution by so keeping quiet after the ruling. It shows that he wants the country to be governed by the rule of law. So he is also watching what the judiciary is also doing, rather than disobeying. It's better to obey, and so that the country can go in the right way. The finance bill can be implemented correctly, rather than the shortcuts.
All right. Yep. And we are also joined by Tolsten Alenga, who is a leadership and governance expert. Thank you so much, brother, for making time. And I'll throw you straight to the deep end. The conversation that was last weekend was that the majority whip, who is also a legislator, Osoro, that he enticed some of the members from the Azimio brigade, and even there were calls by some of the Kenyans that this is something that should be lying squarely at the EACC docket, because being a majority leader being a majority whip is quite a position in the country. I would like you to weigh in on that.
Thank you, Troy, for this spacious welcome to your show. And straight into the conversation, when you look at the statements by the MP, Honorable Savannah Osoro, as much as it indicts members of parliament that were voted for the minority side, and whether or not they are performing their rightful duties.
Just hold the thought. We seem to be having some issues with your microphone, but I would like Wakili to weigh on that. Is this something that somebody, because he was caught on camera, and it's something that he said in public, and then maybe he said that, yeah, it was soup and thing. Is this something that should be investigated? Because, as I say, being a majority whip is quite a position in the country, and talking about something that as contentious as it has been, it's even in the courts as we speak, the Finance Act. Is this something that needs to be re-looked at, and especially when it comes from a leader?
I think basically what I can say, leaders in this country have to be put to account. As I have stated before, I mean, we have to be a country of laws. Otherwise, we are going to, to degenerate into something else. Secondly, a majority whip is someone very important, because, of course, he has to rally his side in making sure that whichever position the government wants to take, that position is achieved. And so it's an important office because that is an office that is created by the law as well. So whatever he says, he has to be careful, okay? Because once you portray an image of either disrespect to the laws or the constitution, then it means that any other person can really disrespect the constitution. No one has to obey it. At the same time, as he rallies his troops, he has to do that within the confines of the law. For instance, the government or the majority doesn't have, for instance, to buy the opposition. They can lobby. They have their own ways of lobbying. They can convince the other side because every member of parliament is independent-minded. However, there are limits to what they can do. For instance, you cannot, for instance, say we are going to buy the opposition, or we are going to compel them, or to put them under duress or something. You cannot do that. But you can, through your persuasion skills. I know members of parliament like Mheshimiwa here. The reason they won election is because of their persuasive skills. Through their persuasion, you further your agenda. You pull together your troops and convince the other side so that they can cross the aisle and join you in supporting whichever agenda you want to pass. And so everything that has to be, should be done by any arm of the government. And this is provided under Article 10 when you look at it. It has to be done within the confines of the Constitution. We have values and principles that have been given by the Constitution, and so everyone has to follow them, and especially if you are a leader in this country.
You're right. Yeah. I would like you, Alenga, now to weigh in on that. And still on that, we're talking about following the rule of law. And EPRA has not even followed that law. If there are some conservatory orders issued by the court, it's something that we should all follow. We're still partly implementing the Finance Act, if you ask me.
I think, first of all, just to pick up from where we had the technical hitch, the observation that the majority leader in the parliament came forth to say that he had bribed members from the other side of the divide to disappear when there was a very serious motion going on in parliament, in as much as it indicts those who agree to be bought, it's equally, or in a bigger part, it indicts the integrity of the entire parliament that we have, and whether this is a parliament you can trust or you can hope will give a serious decision for the country. I have said time and again that Kenyans should sort of just try to forget that we have a parliament, and then maybe we can work with the other state agencies that are working, because the parliament clearly shows, number one, it's a matter of the majority and the minority, and you know that we even purge to have a huge majority, so that everything that is passed in that parliament has no afterthought, has no consideration for what the people think. Primarily, the parliament is supposed to represent that which the normal person who is not able to step into the leadership actually has to say. They are representatives of the people. And if we have a situation where they are being bought to disappear on a crucial day, then it means we have no parliament to think about. Number two, it actually also deeply indicts the kind of leadership that we have. We have a leadership that has no, like my colleague Wakili says, they do not trust their power to convince, their power to sell their agenda and get people buy into it without using other extra theatrics that will have them carry the day. Straight into the matter of EPRA not adhering to the Constitution and the rule of law, in the view of the conservatory orders that was applied the other day from the courts, that bars them from effecting the 16% VAT. First of all, EPRA actually did that even before the president ascended to the bill. They actually did it before the president ascended to the bill. So if we have such an agency that does not listen to what the courts say, then it speaks volumes about our overall adherence to the Constitution and the rule of law. This Constitution was passed But since its inception 13 years ago, it has been continuously mutilated because we vote in people who do not understand that constitution. Primarily, the constitution tells us we walked away from that form of government where you have the opposition and the government long time ago. But today you still hear people say, sisi tuko upande wa serikali. You know, actually the constitution tells us we have only two parts in the parliament or in the judiciary, in the legislature, the majority and the minority, and they both form government. So we have one government.
And that is why we do not have an office for the official leader, opposition.
Yes, we have one government. So when we have crucial motions like the finance bill, we need to all talk. We can't look at it as this is from government, we are pushing it onto you. And then the other one says, sisi kwa upinzani, we don't want that. So can we have a working formula where MPs from this side of the divide can come and this side of the divide, and they sit together, they argue in the war room, and when they walk out, understanding that the kind of government they are in is a one government with only minority side and majority side. So by the time they are walking out of the room, they are telling us as Kenyans a position they have all agreed. So that we don't have things being fought in the public domain, and us as normal Kenyans wondering, now where do we come in?
Mheshimiwa, I would like you to also pick your mind on that in regards to that. Maybe we are still having the hangover from the last constitution. That is why we are talking about opposition and the government. And that is why we are having so many teething problems, including in the Finance Act. I'd like to pick your mind on that.
I think what the analyst has said is what's supposed to be, but it is not what it's supposed to be. Because when you look outside, you will see that as Mio has assumed the office of the opposition, and the government of the President William Samuel Ruto has assumed the government. So, in essence, the Constitution intended us to be one government. But in actions, it is not that way. Because if we are in one government, then why is the opposition not sitting? Why the losers are not sitting with the president to be able to negotiate what is not right, what is not being done right, why the price of goods are going up, rather than going to the streets to demonstrate and be able to do harm to other people. You see, there are people who don't go to work when there is an announcement that there will be a demo tomorrow. Yes. What does that do? That destroys the economy. So if the Constitution for sure needed us to be one, then we need to sit down, and that has to go to the minds of our leaders to be able to put together their acts together and sit and run the government as one. But as it is now, we are still implementing the old constitution, even in parliament. Now, to come to the majority whip, I was in parliament for all those days when we were debating about the finance bill. I never saw anybody walking out from parliament having been bribed. When people are being bribed, you can always see people are moving.
Maybe, Mheshimiwa, it happened outside parliament.
No. Yeah. Those who were not there when we started the debate were not there up to the end. So, and they never came to parliament. So I think, to me, the MP was joking. The majority leader was, the majority whip was joking.
He said he paid them to stay away.
No, he was joking.
Not to come to parliament at all.
He was joking with the minds of the people. He never paid anybody.
That's a very serious.
The president never. No. The leader never paid anybody, and I never heard anybody say, "I have been paid." You see, when we are in parliament, we are colleagues ourselves. There is no opposition in my blood. There is no government in my blood. We are all colleagues working for the same government, isn't it? So we talk everything. If we fight in the house here and we go to the canteen here to eat, we have soup on the same table and we discuss as members of parliament who are working for the good of the country. So I never heard anybody say has been bribed. I think that is an allegation.
All right. He later on said that he was misquoted by the press. He was talking about soup and everything. But, well, Kenya have an interpretation on that kind of soup. Back to you, Wakili. What some of the reprieves that we can get from the court, and what can we maybe expect after the three-judge bench? Let's say even if it plans that maybe the case will be heard, we know the courts, because the CJ has to, first of all, constitute the bench. They have to have a pre-trial conference, maybe a mention, then they have a hearing date and maybe a ruling date, which may take maybe a couple of days or even a month. What happens? Should we, or are we continuing using the Finance Act of 2021-2022?
Yeah, as it stands, all the amendments that were proposed by the Finance Act 2023, Finance Act 2023, are not supposed to be in operation. And I agree with my brother here. Whatever is happening in this country, for instance, EPRA putting into effect the amendment that were put in that by that act, when in fact the court has said all this act has been suspended, I think is just utter wrong. And I think as Okia is trying to do, he should be cited for contempt and be put to account, because of disobeying the court order. The common Mwananchi is already feeling the pain. The prices are up, everything is going up because of just what has happened. So that is one. Two, we expect, as you already know, there are two things that are likely to happen. One is that the respondents, which is the AG and the CES for Treasury and others who are opposing the petition, are going to proceed to the Court of Appeal. Because if they leave it as it is, the determination of that matter can perhaps take months. Okay? Yeah. And if it takes months, the president had a target, and his government had a target of collecting, through that act, collecting 211 billion.
Actually, 300.
300. Yes, 311 billion. 311. Already they are late by 11 days. Okay? Every single day, it means they cannot be able to collect it. Yeah. So if it takes months, it means it may not be possible for them to. So the most likely thing that is going to happen is that these people, the respondents are likely to proceed to the Court of Appeal to see if they can reverse these conservatory orders. Now, when they go to the Court of Appeal, there is a likelihood that the Court of Appeal can say, well, there are some sections that should be suspended and some should continue to operate. Because when you look at the Okia's petition, there are specific sections. Other than that section of saying that the bill was supposed to be presented to the Senate, the Senate, he has very specific section that he's opposing. Okay? So the Court of Appeal may say, let us suspend, give conservatory orders on these particular sections, and the other parts of the bill operate. At the same time, the Court of Appeal might actually still agree with the High Court and say, well, we have looked at it, the whole thing is unconstitutional, so we cannot try to sanitize an unconstitutional act to put it into place. So those are things that people should expect. But in the meantime, what we expect is that this is a matter that is going to be expedited because we cannot wait. If the Honorable Chief Justice is likely to constitute that bench perhaps this week, and the bench starts working as soon as next week. And they're going to give very strict timelines so that this matter can be resolved as soon as yesterday. More
like the way we saw for the decision on who had won the election.
That's right, because that is normally provided by the Constitution. Only that this one is not provided by the Constitution of how many days. But now the court can set timelines on how fast they can fast track the determination of that matter. Because the longer we wait, the longer the government will also wait to collect its taxes. And it's obvious that taxes have to be collected. Only, as you have said, that in the collection of the taxes, let us follow the law. That is the only thing the court is saying.
All right. And Alenga, looking at still the Finance Act, it's also one of the reasons that Azimio has gone to the streets, and they've talked about this coming Wednesday, that is tomorrow, and they have talked about I remember yesterday the Right Honorable former Prime Minister Raila Odinga saying that we will continue, and we have already seen what the Maandamanos can do. On Friday, 6 lives lost, talking about 10 million to 15 million signatures, but the Kenya Kwanza has talked about, well, your project is as dead as night, because we have the numbers. If at all they will collect the signatures, I also wonder why would they take the signatures, and we know very well the tyranny of numbers, just as we saw in the Finance Act.
Troy, a few things to talk about here. Number one, I just want to have a recap on what could happen in the Court of Appeal. I think I slightly differ with Wakili that there may be certain provisions that we may be waived on to proceed, because in totality the bill is unconstitutional in the sense that what the President ascended to was not what was presented in Parliament. There was an additional 7 issues that were not presented in the Parliament. So
and it still didn't go to the Senate as it should.
Yes. So at that point, the bill already offends the Constitution, because it was some form of perjury or conmanship just to get something passed, you know. So I think by that, if we really hold the law, then that the judges must not look aside. They must indict that and rule on that as the biggest basis of unconstitutionalism, as has been raised by Honorable Okia Omtata. And then another thing to look at is there is a certain kind of misinformation from the majority side of government that the ruling on this bill stops collection of certain taxes. That's not true, because this is an amendment, but there exists a framework for collection of taxes. My pay as you earn for the previous month has already been deducted. I confirmed on my payslip. So there's no way that government is not able to collect money, and as they are saying that certain issues will be grounded because we cannot, this bill does that. And such an issue was equally raised at yesterday, and the judges did not feel that, the judge did not feel that makes sense, you know. So government, the majority side of government also has to relook at how they present their case, you know. You cannot present a case by falsehoods, you know, because they don't amount to anything. And then now back to your question of the eventuality of Azimio collecting signatures to purge the government of the day. What we are losing in this conversation is, as per Article 1 of the Constitution, it says that all power belongs to the people, and then it proceeds to say that the people can exercise this power directly or through their elected representatives, that is the executive and the judiciary and the legislature. So if the Constitution already provides for a framework where citizens can bypass the elected representatives, so then this issue must be given the necessary attention that it deserves. And then let's say if you actually have raised about maybe 10 to 15 million signatures, and remember the president was voted in by about 7 million people, then actually there's a voice here that is trying to say something. So there has to be a framework within which this bypassing of the elected representatives, as provided for in the Constitution, must be institutionalized. Number two, there's a provision in law for the doctrine of necessity, where some things may be done even if we do not really see the framework existential in law. The first country to have this doctrine of necessity invoked was Nigeria during the time of Yaradua, when he was away and he was almost dying. and the parliament had to swear in the deputy president as president without official handover of power. So the doctrine of necessity does exist. So if Kenyans speak in volumes about 15 million, they say, we don't have faith in this government, we don't have faith in the parliament too, so we don't want our issue taken to parliament for debate. We just want to say as Kenyans, we don't want this government. So a framework has to be established within which that has to be addressed.
I think, Mheshimiwa, at the end of the day, all this has to make its way to Parliament. And we saw what has happened in the Finance Act. It was almost unanimous when it was passed. I would like to pick your mind on that. If that could they see the light of day, if it ends up in one way or the other. Let's say they have the 15 million signatures.
The way the analyst has just said is that if we go that route, then we will have no route, we will have no country to call Kenya, because we will be swearing in everybody who collects signatures more than the.
But that's the constitution.
So now it has to come to Parliament, and that is where the decision has to be made. And the decision has to be made by the people that it represents, the 45 million. And we are the people in that house. So, and it has to be put in a framework for it to be able to work in Parliament. It doesn't just come as signatures and then they are thrown in Parliament for them to. It has to pass through researchers, analysts, and through the House Business Committee to be able to know whether it is admissible in the House. So it is not everything that is just brought that it goes to Parliament for debate. So what I know is that this country cannot reach that far because we have a constitution to follow. We have a president in place, we have the deputy in place, and we have the government in place. So before it reaches there, I don't think they can even get 15,000 signatures. I am sure they will get 2,000 or 3,000.
Are you sure?
No,
yes. The other time
unless where are the 15,000? Why could they vote? Why could they vote the day of voting? 15,000. Where were they? Why did they vote? That is small number. If they have the votes.
You're saying that they cannot get the numbers.
They cannot get the numbers.
They can't get the numbers
unless they are forging the numbers.
Alenga, I think Mheshimiwa has a point. They cannot.
They cannot.
To match
and the signatures must be verified by IEBC to find whether that is the correct person or that is forgery. And you'll find that half of them will be forgeries. People will be signing on behalf of the others, even although the ID might be there. But it cannot reach there.
So you say it's an exercise in futility.
This is futility. This is hot air, as the Chief Justice always says.
Yeah. You think they can marshal the numbers and still marshal the numbers in Parliament?
Why would they marshal them to vote for them?
In the boxing ring, they say the blow that sends you down is not the strongest one, it's the one you didn't see. Yeah. So ideally, in the last election, we had 22 million registered voters. And then we had about 15 million only voting. That means there was almost close to 8 million voters that didn't speak that day. Maybe this could be their time to speak, Mheshimiwa.
They cannot.
But still, they cannot.
And then also another misinformation from Mheshimiwa is that IEBC cross-checks signatures. You know, IEBC does not have a data bank for signatures, so they cannot verify my signature whether it is mine or not. That's a falsehood.
But perhaps
yes, Mola.
You know what Azimio is trying to do is basically they want to make a political statement.
Yeah, indeed.
And to delegitimize the government. Because if 20 million people come up today and say, we are dissatisfied with how this government is being run, it's a political statement. It's a serious statement that the government has to listen to. Okay? And it's really sad that Azimio is doing this right now, because all this is coming up after the finance bill. When it really mattered, when they were supposed to be in Parliament and vote, they ducked. they were not in the parliament. Okay?
Yeah, only 89 voted.
They needed mandamano to say, now we don't want, let us not pass this. This is being, pushed down our throats. Yeah? That's the time they will have done this mandamano. But first of all, they relaxed, made sure that we have the Finance Act as we have it, and then they went back and said, and of course they knew that they didn't have the numbers. Went back and said, now, we guys are dissatisfied with what this regime is doing, with what the majority are doing, and now we want to fight in the street. I think this is utter wrong. Having said that, it is the right of every single citizen to express their feelings and to take charge of their government. And I agree with my friend here. Article 1 gives that power to the people. And one of the ways is to show your dissatisfaction and to say, to directly tell the authorities how you want your government to be run through picketing. And it says everyone has that right under Article 37. Not some. I've seen there is some amendment that they're trying to create, saying that you are now going to even say how many people are going to come. I mean, this is a lot of nonsense, really.
And again, the questions do raise what we were hearing during the BBI, the basic structure, right?
Yes. I mean,
which is quite something that it's quite hard to change at the moment.
Absolutely. They cannot change it. If all Kenyans, I don't know how many we are right now, about 50 million.
50 million. Around there now.
About 51 million.
We are 45, about 3
whichever number we can decide to go to the streets today. Yeah. At the same time, 20 million can choose to go to the streets. And the remaining decide to remain in their houses, go to work. It is their decision. The Constitution gives them that power. It is the people's power. Now, no one can come up, and it will be interesting to see which, amendments they try to make, or to the Public Order Act, to try to do this kind of thing. It is going, but it's basically going to be taken back to the court, and the court is going to nullify it, because you cannot limit the power of the people, because ultimately the power belongs to the people. Everyone else who is in Parliament, who is in the executive, who is in judiciary, they are only doing it's a delegated work. We delegated them to do that work. Now you cannot limit my power. I am the principal. You are my agent. You cannot. The agent can never have more power than the principal. It will never happen. Yeah.
All right. And Mheshimiwa, I still want to pick your mind on that. Geoffrey Roko, who is the MP from Mbeere, he's talked about that he would want some amendments in regards to how we picket, how we protest against maybe the government or any other issue that we want to bring about. Do you support some of the amendments that he has talked about, and especially in regards to the Azimio demos that they have lined up tomorrow?
First of all, I have not seen the amendment of Ruku because I have not read it, I have not seen it. So I cannot recommend on something I have not read. What I know is that you cannot change the constitution. If there's a right to picket, then it should go on. So the only thing that is bad with the picketing is that there are people who are bent to do wrong as they picket. They pick people's properties, they throw stones, and so, when you bring young people together, you bring many people together, they have all sorts of minds. And also, these are hungry people. They have no food, they have no money. And so they are thinking that by so doing, they are gaining. And also, the others who left their homes thinking that I might pass somewhere and grab something and go home with. So you cannot control the picketing people. There is no formula that the other day in Kamukunji, the Prime Minister told them not to touch anyone's property as they were going to the city center. But see how they were throwing stones at people. And some people were killed on the way. And some other people were marked. Somebody wrote in the article that he has he has been given an order to supply, is it 26 iPhones? So he has to pick them as they are walking in the shops. He has already been given an order. So what kind of people are you picketing with? So if it is the leaders that are picketing alone, people like the leadership of the parties and that kind of thing, that is okay. But if it is the everybody, the people that are looking for jobs, the non-employed, and everybody who is angry in the street, then you cannot be able to prevent them from picking things. So picketing is in the Constitution. There's nobody to deny. But how do you do it in this country? You have seen people picket in other countries peacefully, carrying trees, carrying placards, and they don't destroy anyone's property. But have we reached that stage ourselves as a country? No. We are yet to reach there.
Perhaps that I could say something. And that's the reason why before picketing is done, the police are supposed to be informed, not for purposes of authorizing the picketing, but so that they can provide security. And the reason you provide, because you have sufficient laws. If someone is picking another person's property, those are thieves. They're supposed to be arrested. And that's the reason why police are supposed to be there. Police are not supposed to be there to fight the protesters. They're supposed to be there to make sure that there is order. There is peace and order. What we normally see in this country is that instead of the police giving that order, they start fighting the protesters. And once you start fighting the people who are exercising their constitutional guaranteed rights, they're also going to fight back. So I think this is where I think the government has to rethink so that they avail enough security for the protesters and the people who are not protesting, so that people's property, people's lives are protected. And if someone breaches, it's an individual. It is not a crowd that is committing a crime. If I steal, I've stolen as an individual. I haven't stolen on behalf of the crowd. Let the people who are committing crimes be arrested and charged as per the laws of the country. Yeah.
All right. We are still on News Check. Now we are wrapping it up. Let's first of all hear the closing remarks of my panelists. I have been having Joshua Mbidi, who is the MP for Masinga. We also have Alex Mola, who is a constitutional lawyer, and also Tolsten Alenga, who is a governance and also a leadership expert. Let's begin with you, Mheshimiwa. Your closing remarks in regards to the state of the nation, and more specifically on what is happening. Kenyans are looking at the Finance Act very keenly, and also Kenyans are keen on making sure that the demos, even if they have to go on, they have to be peaceful.
I think what I can tell Kenyans is that to have patience, because we in our wisdom as members of parliament, we wanted to create an environment whereby the country has money by passing the finance bill, because the way we were doing last financial year, you could see there were no developments, and also all the pending bills were not being able to be paid because there was no money. So and also the debts are even gone as high as 9 trillion. And what we wanted to do is that after some times implementing the finance bill, we can start now paying the debts and bring them down, bring the trillions down. At the end of the day, Kenya will benefit, and that is what was wisdom of Parliament, and I am sure God will help us to continue to collect the money.
Thank you, Honorable. Alex?
Yeah, I think Kenyans should be very happy that they have a judiciary that is independent, a judiciary that can stand up right now and really affirm and stand for the Constitution. Kenyans should be very happy that 10 years or 13 years after we promulgated a Constitution, a judiciary can stand up against the executive and basically bring order. And so what I can conclude by saying is that, especially the other arms of the government, we need to be a country of laws, a country governed by the rule of law. And if we are governed by the rule of law, then it means that our activities and our affairs will run smoothly. Otherwise, it will be fighting day in, day out. And the person who suffers is the common mwananchi, not the person who sits in parliament, not the judiciary officer who sits at the bench, and not the president who sits at the State House. Yeah.
Alenga?
Yes. I think in as much as we're talking about the state of the nation, we have to admit that there are issues that are going wrong. And for these things to be corrected, we will need both the input of the minority side of the government and the majority side of the government. Because at the end of the day, this country belongs to all of us. If it goes right, it's good for you and I. If it goes bad, it's bad for all of us. You know, there's nobody that will have a premium when things are going wrong. There's nobody that will benefit when things are going wrong. So ideally, let us allow dialogue over things we want for the country, so that we agree over things we want, and when we start rolling them out, there's no hitches here and there. It is imperative for government to collect taxes. It's imperative for government to try and establish a system where we are not really dependent on foreign debt, and we try to create and spend what we have within ourselves. But then the proper frameworks must be put in place. Consultation with the people must be done, and therefore, and also the direction of the law must be adhered to. When all these things are factored in, we make decisions that make Kenya progress, and not we don't continue rotating around the same spot. With the matters that are in court today, let's hope that the judiciary will supply the wisdom that is required, and then our leaders will also respect what the courts say, and from there, Kenya does not stop, will forge the way forward. And then maybe lastly, for those who are going out for demonstrations tomorrow, speak your voice, for the Constitution allows you to do so, but do not harm someone, do not break someone's business, because they have gone through a lot to establish that, and that is their livelihood. But again, to the police, who everybody else forgets. Today we are talking about shops that were broken into, glasses that were broken, but we are not talking about the 6 people that were killed by the police. We cannot have a police that we fund with our own taxes to kill us. We cannot have guns turned against our people. Guns are supposed to secure our borders.
And with all fairness, that the 6 have not quite been confirmed that they were all indeed killed by police officers. But at the end of the day, 6 lives were lost, which were not supposed to be lost. Even 1 is way too many. Tolsten Alenga, who is a leadership and governance expert. Just next to him, we have an advocate of the High Court, Alex Mola. And just next to him, we have a Honorable MP, Joshua Mbiti Mwalio, who is the MP for Masinga. Well, that's put a cap on the first hour. On this second hour, we are looking at the online protection for our children, and also inculcating an e-reading culture in our children. Thank you so much for joining us in this first hour. We're taking a quick break, but we'll be right back with more. I'll be engaging Lona Kamemba, who is the Senior Category Brand Manager, Chocolates and Biscuits at Cadbury, and also Luna Odawa, who is a children's psychologist.